As the world is healing from COVID-19 pandemic, we are at a cusp of another huge health issue in obesity and other stress-related illnesses like high blood pressure, diabetes, heart conditions, and even cancer. Good health is something that we always take for granted. We only think about our health when we are sick or we are faced with a huge health catastrophe, and simply by then it's too late. Our society is conditioned to focus on material wealth at all costs, and good health is something that money just can't buy. Hello and welcome, my name is Tanvi and this is episode 12 of our IG Live session series, and all our previous episodes are available on my YouTube channel. Feel free to listen in, subscribe and like. So today we're going to talk about healing and sustainable health, and who better to talk to than Dr. Ahmad Al-Hasawi, who we've missed for the past 2 months, and she is a global speaker and she is a scientist in body healing mechanisms. So without further ado, let me add Dr. Nada. Hello, Dr. Nada, how are you?
Hello, Mrs. Tanvi. Thank you for the nice introduction. Good to see you too.
Good to see you. It's been so long. I'm very happy to see you today.
Thank you very much. Me too. Actually, I really appreciate the introduction you just gave. It's very nice. And thank you for having me for this important talk, which really it needs deep understanding in order to make the transformation in terms of the global health and understanding the meaning of sustainable health. Also, I appreciate your unique episodes, because nobody's really introducing this or showing the word or this talk about or get all these talks, which are really deep and really we're supposed to make the transformation.
Let's get straight to our conversation today, Dr. Nada. As we said, the topic is very, very interesting and it's very deep. So let us talk about what exactly is healing and what is sustainable health.
Yes, thank you very much. Actually, healing is meant by balancing the cause of the diseases. When people have chronic diseases, I'm not talking about the acute disease, chronic diseases, healing meant by set them free from the disease. And it's different from treatment. As you know, this message of Elixir of Life, this is part of my personal search. It's a lifelong search. What is the meaning of healing? And finally, actually, maybe after, later on, we will maybe talk about the healing, the method of healing. Now, sustainable health is meant by the individual's responsibility to maintain her or his health, to be proactive, not reactive. As you mentioned in your introduction, mostly people, they think about their health when they get the disease, while they're supposed to prevent the disease in the first place. And that is mostly related to what is the healthy lifestyle. And it's also very deep. So now we need to really get into deep these two important words, which are important, and also they have a specific key: healing and sustainable health. Yes.
So basically what you're saying that, sustainable health is a commitment to ourselves, by taking responsibility of our health in a proactive, preventative manner. Am I right? Am I getting it correctly?
Yeah, that is the exact meaning. Yeah.
All right, perfect. As you were talking about the method of healing, do you want to go into the method of healing now, or would you like to know? Would like to go into a little bit of a key of healing or having a healthy lifestyle? If you can take us through that.
Yeah, thank you. I prefer to talk about the key of healing, which is the same key of sustainable health, and a specific key. Many people talk about this key, but it needs deeper understanding, and that key. Mostly people know, people talking about health and all this, trying their best to raise the consciousness about health. It's the mind. I would say the mind. Mostly they talk about the mind, the negative emotions. And people mostly, they don't know about the emotions themselves, not in the heart. We talk about the mind here. So most people, they live in negative thoughts, which will produce negative emotions. And that still is not, is like meant by the key, but still there is a deeper cause of that key. It's deeper understanding of this point. So this is important in order to understand the connection between psychology or psychological state of an individual and his health state. And when we talk about health state, mostly we talk about the body, but it's the mind in the first place here. And we would say, if we again understand this, the three key words here and their sequence important, it's starting from the spirit, the mind, and the body. Mind is in the middle. So what's going on the mind is not connecting to the spirit. That's the issue here. So that's what actually brings keep the person living in the negative thoughts and negative emotions. Maybe I will focus on the minds now. Why is that? Because we can't keep talking about the sustainable health in terms of matter, in terms of food, in terms of exercising, in terms of the other important source of pollution, all these stuff that common in the internet. We're not just repeating what is internet. There, available information is there, but we mean by that talking about how thoughts can change the matter. So mostly the thoughts in our minds is changing the state of our body, being in the healthy state or unhealthy state. So if it's unhealthy state, that's we mean here the diseases. Can we change this? Can we convert the disease, or can we heal the disease and bring back the body to the healthy state? Yes, we can do that. And that is a universal law. I would like to highlight something which is important here. Again, people live in negative thoughts, which create negative emotions, and they seek to relieve themselves from negative emotions by being addicted to certain activities, certain ways. They got used to them. Like what you mentioned, obesity, for example. That is because of the stress in the first place. Also, many people, they are addicted to, travel and all these source of things that people really do in order to, for pleasure. So suppose if they change the state, being negative thoughts and negative emotion, to the balanced state, living the negative and positive, which is acceptable by each individual, not each individual, here will bring back the balance to the mind. And balance is meant by life, meant by happiness, because people, they don't understand the balance. If you ask them, many of them, they would answer they prefer being in the balanced state than the being positive, because it's not just, it's inside hidden. That's really the message which is hidden inside the inner self. It's there, Mrs. Temvi. Everybody has this information, but they need somebody to just, make them conscious about that, and to click it it's not difficult. But still, the mind sometimes can refuse. So mostly the mind is the challenge here.
Yes, I think even Mr. Ahmed is now live with us, and he said that why does the mind reject the healing? So I think you've already, if you'd like to add more, but you've already answered the question, but if you'd like to add more on this.
Yeah, I would like to thank Mr. Ahmed for that amazing question. The mind reject, because number one, healing is like in the data. What is inside the data information in the mind? If we talk about healing, sometimes we won't believe it because not there. Mostly when we talk about healing, what medicine do you mean? What's going to just, they still talk about medicines. We are not against medicines, but what we say that we're not supposed to live on medicines. That we suppose, okay, taking medicines, okay, it's for the body, but still it's temporary, because the person needs to, keep, taking the medicine, for example, for diabetes. If you say something like that, they would reject it, because how come I can live without medicine? I say we are not going to interfere with this. Doctor will deal with this, but what we are talking about is healing from that. At the same time, you need to work on healing. That's what we say. So here, that's why I think most people, they reject healing. I think they don't believe it, and because the method, again, is for them, makes this challenge. To them, it's like changing the lifestyle. Because they were born, having this program in their mind, that healthy lifestyle is meant by, healthy food and, exercising and, sleep early and all this, stuff. But still, they need to just allow themselves to understand the method of healing.
We were talking about right now, you mentioned about doctors, okay? I was reading an article, I have it here, I'll just quote it. It says, many doctors fail to realize that this, because that the industry is based on a reactive approach than the proactive that we are talking about.
Yes.
And they are trained to think in a reactive approach. In Western civilization, this is how doctors make the living. In pharmaceutical companies, they thrive. And another very interesting thing was, in ancient China, the opposite was true. If a patient was sick, then the doctor was fined for failing to do her duty, or his or her duty.
Wow.
So this is something that it was happening before, but now no. So today we are ruled by pharmaceutical companies. We, as you said, that even if you have a slight headache, I'm one of those people, I will not lie, because I think I have this migraine, so sometimes when I see it setting in, I tend to take a Panadol just to subside it, otherwise it goes to my eye and I can't see properly. So I need to, stop it from when it's just beginning, when it's just starting, I feel it, I have to stop it immediately. So yes, there are breathing exercises, which of course we can, continuously do, but I'm one of those people who have to be told to do things, it just doesn't happen inside. So I think these are the conversations that we are having now will not only help me, but help anybody who is listening to have a proactive approach to good health. Another thing that was mentioned in this article was very interesting. There's in America, in the US, there is a pill or there's a medicine called Vioxx, Vioxx. This medicine is for arthritis. So they say that it had reportedly killed about 100,000 people in the US since its introduction, and over 300 people in Australia. It relieves pains and arthritis, but it triggers heart attacks, which we see. See, this is what we are talking about, isn't it? That we are living in a reactive. Yes, there's no ideal drug. We are not concentrating on healing. We are concentrating on a reactive approach than a proactive one.
Yeah, actually, it's interesting, and mostly, as you mentioned, Mrs. Temvi, we concentrate on the temporary solutions. People, they got used to this. And that is, again, being in the matter state, not the spiritual state.
Like when we are talking about, in my introduction, we were talking about stress-related illnesses like obesity, of course, heart conditions, which we have previously, you and me, we have discussed in more details in our previous episodes. But can we go a little bit more on the chronic diseases related to stress? Can we a little bit take that diversion, please?
Yeah, thank you very much. Why I'm focusing on the mind? Because mind is the mind itself is the source of the stress. And mind actually is leading the brain. And maybe there is confusion in some people because mind is not an organ. Mind is something we can't touch. It's thoughts and emotions which is stored in the brain. And the brain is that organ which lives inside our skull. And without the brain, there is no mind. Because memories, emotions, information, all in the brain. In two important, for example, two parts, which are the amygdala and the hippocampus. Now, what's actually happening, maybe people, when they understand how the brain, when when the mind is suffering from negative emotions, this will be, it's like transferred, will be received by the brain as fight or flight response. And maybe many people, they know about fight and flight response because this like basic, scientific information we took in the high school. But now we need to understand deeper what is fight or flight. The more we observe ourselves, we will understand it. And actually, the brain, we perceive the emotion as a source of a threat, as, perceiving, we keep mentioning this as, threatening source, threatening creature, like lion or snake, for example. It's like a source which threaten our lives. So what will happen? That the brain, inside the brain, there's an area called the hypothalamus, which go into, if we see lion, which go into send a signal through two pathways. One of these pathways faster than the other, which is signal to the adrenal gland in order to send, or in order to produce or secrete the adrenaline and noradrenaline. This is very fast. And the other pathway also to send the signal to the adrenal gland as well in order to produce or secrete the cortisol. This is very deep because it's like the more we understand it, we can understand the meaning of chronic stress. Now I'm talking about acute stress by, seeing a lion. And all this based on information which is already stored in the mind. Like, for example, we already know since we were young, and that is the 7 years of our age, the first 7 years, that information saying that lion eats a human. So it means that now is stored, we're going to react upon it to this, according to this information. That's why the hypothalamus will automatically, and this it's like a reflex reaction. It's like spontaneously will send this signal. It's like fight or flight for these hormones to be secreted. So why is that? Because now we need to react. Now we need to react. We need to fight or flight. Mostly we will fight. Fight is like different culture here we're talking about. Like in Africa, they're supposed to fight. But we fly because they were programmed according to this. Now the culture here is important, but mostly we will flight. So why, and what will happen? Why do we need again these hormones to flight? Because we need a lot of energy to do that. Even if we are sick, even if our immune system is busy in like fighting an antigen or pathogen or bacteria or microbe. So again, we need a lot of energy. The immune system, use a lot of energy, and now the immune system is supposed to be suppressed by the cortisol in order to for this energy to be used for a flight response. That energy should be also produced in the body, and it's mostly the rapid source of energy is the glucose in our body. That is the sugar, glucose. So we have a store of glucose in the liver, glycogen. So the signal actually will release that glucose from glycogen in the liver, and then glucose will be free now in the blood. So for the blood to be pumped, again, this is still the reaction of the hormones here. Adrenaline is going to pump that blood rich in glucose, rich in that source of energy, into the limbs, which are the arms and the arms and the legs, which are the protective parts in our body. So if you understand it this way, now the limbs are protective parts in our body, the protective organs, while the internal viscera is the growth organs, including the growth organs in our body. So here is like pumping the blood from the internal viscera to the limbs is healthy if there is a lion. It should be. And again, because we need, the muscles in the arms needs that energy. Increasing the heart rate, we can just remember that when we are we are feeling the fear, There is increase in heart rate, increase in the breathe. There's increase in breathing. And all these symptoms, you know, increasing when we just look at the danger and all these symptoms or the reactions that is meant by these hormones, we already can know them when we remember when we are like in anger or fear or whatever. So here, this reaction is very healthy if there is a lion and we need to flight. And then what will happen now, because these stress hormones were created for these situations, so our body can manage their increased level, because what will happen after we just run away from the lion, the levels of these hormones will will go back to normal, and as nothing happened. This will happen minutes. Okay, so this is healthy and this okay. That's using the energy in order to protect our body. And it's important to understand now energy, because energy shouldn't be waste. This is also important. So protecting the body is okay. So now we are not against this. We are, what we mean by here, talking about the chronic diseases, we talk about the chronic stress. Chronic stress meant by the mind. Feeling the anger, talking about, being sad and, sorrow and all this, talking about the past and living in the past, being in the, feeling the guilt all the time. All these, different negative emotions are due to the program mind with these negative thoughts. And I think most of the program, the mind is negative. Even if they say we keep remembering the nice or the good memories, but also living in the old memories this is also living in the past, because now what you will do based on this. Okay, good memories, nice, very nice, but now what you'll do in the future and how to resolve this negative emotion. Now, as you mentioned, Mrs. Tanvi, now we have examples. I will give examples about some chronic disease that related to this stress, related to these stress hormones, living these negative emotions, secreting the same hormones. The body can deal with this chronic increase in these hormones. It can deal with the acute secretion, acute levels of these hormones. But the chronic secretion is a problem, because there is no any response. There is no response, there is no reaction, there is no fight or flight. And it's like increasing the level of for example, cortisol with nothing. That's why it's well known in medicine that cortisol is related to chronic diseases and even adrenaline. But actually, I think in this stage, it's very important for the doctors to understand deeper into this, what's going on. It's more understanding about the connection between the psychology or psychological state of an individual and, the body state. So, for example, Elxir, it's a well-known example. Most doctors, they know if a patient has Elxir because of he's not feeling very good and he has problems, for example, and he's living the stress, and that is a chronic stress. If we can imagine that a person living this negative emotion, secreting these hormones, and there is like every day, there is a pump of the blood which is supposed to give the nutrient to the stomach, will be pumped to the limbs, to the protective limbs. That, after long term, will create Elxir. Why is that? Because the blood which is supposed to carry the nutrients and oxygen to the stomach, this is supposed to be used in order to build up the mucosal lining in the stomach. It's like there is a mucosal lining which protects the inside of the stomach from the acidity. Because we know that inside of the stomach is acidic. And we need that acid for digest proteins. So this is normal. The thing is, the inside of the stomach supposed to have this healthy mucosal lining in order to protect their stomach from this acid. So what happened, these people, they don't have enough nutrients in order to build up that mucus. So what will happen? by time there will be ulcer. Okay? Another example, the hypertension. You talk about the pump of the blood, that constriction of the blood vessels. Constriction of blood vessels, which is like inside in order to give the blood to the limbs. Again, this is hypertension. If it's in a chronic, if it's chronic, this will produce or this will create hypertension. Also, I will talk about cancer. Now, most people, this is well known. If you ask any patient, he would mention the problems in his life. That is, for example, different problems. So he's living the stress. But again, he could, as Mr. Ahmed mentioned, maybe he will refuse the healing because he needs to allow himself for this, the law of healing itself. So, for example, cancer, these three hormones, which I already mentioned, adrenaline, noradrenaline, cortisol, they will bind to different cells. And if there is a chronic binding, they bind you through the receptors on the cells, on the surface of the cells. So what will happen by time, this will initiate, it's like pathways in the cells due to this binding, which could activate some genes or do mutations of some genes, which will produce proteins that are oncogenic, which means they are related to cancer. So this is also the pathways that is related to cancer. Again, we have an immune system. It's very important. There is type of cells known as neutral killer cells. These cells are blessing. But what happened? Because of the chronic stress, there is suppression in the immune system. And we need to know that even the immune cells, they have the receptors for these hormones. And what will happen by time, binding of these hormones, adrenaline, noradrenaline, cortisol, to the receptors on the neutral killer cells or the immune cells in general will suppress their effect. So they won't be efficient even enough when any virus enter our body. That's why many people, they suffer from low immunity, and it's not normal. It's not normal at all. Even though if people, sometimes they get addicted to these hormones, and sometimes they need these hormones. It's like some people, they get addicted to the negative emotion, to be anger. So they would sometimes create some situations, so they will be angry and upset and so on. So they also addicted to these hormones. So what happened, neutral killer cells, they supposed to kill, that's their job, to kill any cells that could be abnormal or start to be carcinogenic. So this is the role of effective immune system in fighting cancer cells, because there is, big research about that, the relationship between immunity and cancer. If there is no efficient immunity, sometimes efficient immunity can just get rid of the cancer cells from beginning, but sometimes, most of the times, no, it won't, because people suffer from cancer. They are suffering from chronic stress. I would also like to mention the load on the pancreas, which secretes the insulin. That is in diabetes. By time, if there is increase in the sugar in the blood, in the muscle, to give the muscle cells that source, and that is again the chronic. We don't need all that. It's okay for acute. We talk about chronic. Increasing the sugar in the blood means that we want to bring it back to normal now. So means that will signal, you give a signal to the pancreas to secrete the insulin. And insulin is a hormone that's supposed to activate the uptake of the blood by cells. That's why people suffer from the diabetes. It's like the sugar is there, but the cells can't see it because there is no insulin. So insulin is important here. So what happened actually in type 2 diabetes, sometimes, the immune cells, because if there is, for example, infection, there is a microbe, for example. This is again, there is because of the, let's say this is because the immune system is not efficient enough. I'll give this example. The immune cells supposed to fight against pathogen. But because the immune cells are not efficient enough and it's weak in this case, even though if the immune cells need the energy to fight the pathogens, for example, muscle cells will just decrease its sensitivity to the insulin, because we know type 2 diabetes, this is about type 2 diabetes, which actually related to the how sensitive is the cells to the insulin. Like the insulin is there, but cells sometimes is not sensitive to insulin. So this is another type. So if the microbe is there and immune cells can't fight enough and get rid of the microbe, however, the muscles just decrease. This is normally happen, decrease the the sensitivity toward the insulin. By time, if there is no clearance of the microbes by the immune cells, what will happen? The muscle cells will lose its sensitivity to insulin. And that's the type 2 diabetes here. So here, if we go through any of these, diseases, we will, chronic disease, we'll discover and we can understand how the chronic stress presented, of course, because this how the body, the brain, how can translate the chronic stress in terms of these stress hormones. We can understand how each of these is actually related to the chronic stress. So I can say here clearly that the chronic stress is the main cause of all chronic diseases, including the genetic diseases.
I say that the chronic or terminal illnesses, they just don't happen just like that. There is a reason behind it. The reasoning is that our body is not in sync with the environment, with our mind, with everything around us. So that is why these are triggered. So there was one of the things that I would like to ask you here, because when I was researching about sustainable health, one of the things that they, of course, what we're talking about, healthy exercise and, what we put in our body, that is also part of it. But one of the things that was very important was sleep. So having a good night's sleep, what do you think? Why having a good night's sleep is good for your health? Can you elaborate on that, please?
Yes, thank you very much. Very deep, point talking about the sleep, because it's the opposite now. Why people why people they don't sleep well? It's not healthy sleeping. It's the opposite, because they are not in a balanced state. That's why. So it's a matter of pain and suffer itself. It's like feeling the anxiety and the stress, the chronic stress is the main cause of lack of sleep. So why? Because there is inverse relationship between the cortisol and melatonin. Melatonin is the
sleep hormone. Yes.
So if there is no enough melatonin, the normal level at night, there will be no sleep. So there will be the quality. We talk mostly about the quality of sleep, not the hours, because hours different from one person to another. So high cortisol, when people, they just worried and actually they are not in harmony, as you mentioned, harmony or balance, they don't have the internal balance, and then the balance with the outside environment, then the cortisol will be high. It's like being in a wood and expecting the lion all the time. That's why they don't sleep. Yeah.
Yeah. So basically, as Mr. Ahmed is also saying, whatever is happening or whatever we put in our mind is the real problem. So whatever happens and whatever we think about, whatever the the anxiety or the things that we are living in the past is the real problem. So if that is not solved, then we are susceptible for low immunity, we are susceptible for chronic diseases. One of the things I'd like to quote here is about a Sufi teacher. He is a Sufi teacher, a lecturer, a writer, a musician from India, and his name is Hazrat Khan. And he described the sleep as food for the soul. So there was a poem which I'll quote here. It said that, "O sleep, every night thou freest the prisoner from his bonds." So basically, a prisoner, when he is sleeping, he doesn't know he is in captivity. He is free when he is sleeping.
Uh-huh.
So, the wretched is not wretched, he is contented. The suffering has no more pain in misery. So basically what it's saying, that when you are sleeping, it defines like when you're sleeping, you don't even, this is the time that you're feeding your soul. That is why a good night's sleep or a good sleep is very important for a good sustainable health. So do you agree on that, what I quoted from Hazrat Khan?
Interesting. I love it, actually. I enjoy this kind of poems and the spirit. However, I would like to add something here. Again, good sleep, why it's important? Because it balances the body. We know that. Mostly the parasympathetic nervous system. This is like nerves that actually originate from the spinal cord and is going to different organs, and also from the skull. The parasympathetic nervous is the best way to work is at night. That is while we are sleeping, having good sleep. Here, the quality is important. It's responsible for, maintaining and, repairing cells, and also, manufacturing the white blood cells, which is very important part in the immune system. So here we say that this is also the good sleep is very important for the body, and also it's important for the brain. Important for the brain because the brain get rid of the waste during sleep, and this is well-known information. So here we say that that's why it's like not like most people, they would take remedies to sleep. This is again going to matter. Yeah. So what we
it's
mean
going
here,
to reactive method,
again,
like what we're
reactive
talking about.
method. Yeah. But we
Yes.
need to be balanced in order to get good sleep.
So speaking of balance now, let's talk about the relationship between a healthy body and the balance that we create through the scientific life manner of V.M.G.
The secret, that is a very important secret, the coherence between heart and brain, again. So I think most people, 95% of people, they don't have this coherence. And we mean by coherence, it's like being in harmony, like having the one, it's like one line. We have here some people say, "Oh, I'm thinking to do that, but my heart, I don't feel I want to do it in my heart." So it should be one. It should be one. It's like communication. Maybe me and you, Mrs. Tim, we have we communicate, but doesn't mean that we are on the same line and we agree, and it's like not coherence. And same for the heart and brain. Now, science already, this is well-known information, and there is a communication between heart and brain, and most of this information messages from the heart to the brain, not from brain to the heart. That's why, again, now this is reality. The heart is the center of life. And we keep saying that. And I think in old, human history and civilization, they mentioned this, that the heart is the center, not the brain. But the science used to talk different now. The brain, yes, we agree. Brain is actually controlling the body, controlling the heart rate, and so on. But again, the mind is affecting the brain. That's why the brain, the mind, to me, the mind is in the middle. It's like the bridge. The mind is the bridge between heart and brain. But first comes the mind. The heart. So heart is number one. So there is, during this now, this communication is by 40,000 neural cells or glial cells, they call it, in the heart, communicating with the brain. So it's like the brain in the heart. There is like a small brain in the heart, and there is a brain in the head. So they need to be in coherence. And also science revealed that coherence is like electromagnetic, waves. It's measurable. It's there. It's comma, or it's not comma. It's about 0.1 hertz. That is the hertz, that is the frequency. So there is a specific frequency of this, coherence. So how we can, if we can achieve that coherence, we achieve the balance. It means that we achieve balance. It means now we are in the healing state. Now we are meditating. Now we are in love with ourselves and, the world. And I mean here the unconditional love, of course. Okay. So how to achieve that? And what is the meaning of when we say heart is the center of life? It is because it has the message that is meant that we're supposed to achieve on earth. So that message is meant by, we call it the highest value. The highest value is the, hobbies of the hobbies, hobby of the hobbies. It's like the work that you were created to do here on earth. And that's your passion, or that's your inspiration. Most people, they live in motivation. What we talk about here, inspiration, that is the reality. And that is the energy that actually moves us, that's the energy, that's the internal energy. If you would sometimes, even subconscious, maybe subconscious person, even if you mention something about his highest value, he would move spontaneously, because that's the energy that's inside him. That's his real love, the unconditional love in the heart. So if the mind can understand, really allow understanding what is in the heart, and from that message, he can create or put his, vision or goal. That is the first number one. That is number one. Number two, the mind again. Because he can do that, but still sometimes he can go back to the past, and that is the mind. So he needs to balance the mind. Balancing the mind, I would say, maybe I will give now secrets or how we can do it, at least by writing down what's really the things that really, the negative memories or the negative events in our life, negative persons, and what is the positive side of it. Supposed to be in that way, but we need to allow it and get used to it. It's like it could be now it should be part of our, how we think about things, when we go through, this happened negatively, what's the benefit? And it's like it will happen automatically. So getting used to this. Why we need to do that? Because the spirit is pure. Having the highest values is all pure. And we know we are very nice, spirits inside the body. So number one is, the spirit, and then the body. So it's like, this pure spirit supposed to be in line with a balanced mind, with a mind that doesn't have negatives or positives, should be all, balanced. And it's like being on the same line, having the goal. That's what makes the person enjoying the life and not being in a stressful, state. And, this will prevent the stress. But again, we talk about there is difference between challenge and, stress. The challenge is like, I would call the challenge is something related to your highest value. That's why the first number one, the balance is based on practicing the highest value, which has the challenges and the achievements. So like, continual, being the person will be continually between challenge and achieving different tasks in the highest value until, reaching to the goal. And this is what we talk about as V.M.G. So here V is the highest value, M is the mind, and G is the goal. Again, maybe I keep telling this, goal supposed to be should be from the highest value. Because people, they would say, I enjoy music, I'm a musician, and then you will see different goal. So the goal should be from the highest value. And always balancing the mind. Always balancing the mind. This is one of important secrets. That's why these important 3 letters should be together. And should be, even if we take, why sometimes people, they would say, Or, for example, Steve Jobs, one of the people really, he left for us amazing device, which is the iPhone, which we are now communicating through. But he was sick. At the end of his life, he got cancer, and I think that was in pancreas, because he couldn't balance the mind. We are blessed now at this stage of human development to talk about mind. And it's a must. It's like this is part of our education. It should be. Because we need to balance the program mind from our nurture, and we don't blame the nurture. We need now to balance that mind, the program mind. And it's a program, but now it should be our program. And that based on our highest value. You know, the program which are really, it's like building us, constructive, not destructive. And people sometimes, they live in destructive mind, program mind, and they don't know. So they need to know now. They need to understand that and be conscious about that.
So how do you, the importance of VMG, how can that correlate to a healthy life? When you know your value, your VMG, what can help us to create that balance? How does it happen?
That was actually related to the scientific foundation of VMG, which I really was inspired when I heard about this technique from Mr. Ahmed, Dr. Mohammed, Almoathen. So what happened, actually my search was, it's like the secret of the elixir of life. I used to always write elixir of life. It's like I thought that was my inspiration, that there should be a solution for a human pain and suffer. Because, you know, human pain and suffer is meant by not feeling good, not feeling, happy. Not being creative is like going back to past and all this, and, suffering from disease, So now there should be a solution. Actually, throughout my journey, I studied many, things, healing is like by energy, Ayurveda, the herbs. So, different fields that are all related to the complementary medicine, that's what they call, or alternative medicine. Because I believe that at that time there should be something different than what is taught in medicine college. Because I didn't believe actually in, that all the solution in human body, yes, body, and there is, different specializations in medicine, and it's okay by me, but still I thought the health is different thing. What bring this disease in the first place? So then I met Mr. Ahmed, Dr. Mohammed, and thank you. I would like to thank them here as well. I keep, because now this is a appreciation in my heart, because I found what I heard. I said, oh, that is elixir of life. That's what really set people free from pain and suffer. That's the solution. That is the secret of healing people from diseases, chronic diseases, which starts actually from healing the mind. It's okay to heal the mind, and healing the mind means balancing the mind. That's all. You need to balance the mind, because the mind, balance it based on what? Balance it based on the highest value. Again, because the minds, as Dr. Mohammed always mentioned, needs information. Minds contain information. Suppose if we need to give the information to mind, reprogram it, to create the new mind, and we can create our new mind, okay, changing the thoughts, and then by changing the thoughts, and balancing the previous emotion, we set ourselves free. So I thought this is the method, and this is the solution to heal people. At the same time, that's what brings the human salvation, because even in the history, human, history and civilization, there is about salvation, even in religions. So the search for to set yourself free is actually to set yourself free from programmed mind, which is destructive. So then you will feel free. Your spirit will be free to do what you love, and to do what you love, to do what you love, we meant by highest value. So here, this is the way how we can live a healthy lifestyle in the first place. So that is what is the relation between the health and sustainable health and the scientific understanding of VMG.
So basically, we are saying that being spiritual doesn't really mean, of course, believing in God, but it also means believing in oneself. So if you believe in oneself, you acknowledge yourself, you empower yourself. You will get the what do you call, you will get the salvation, as you're talking about. We were talking about some time ago about happiness. How does having or practicing this V.M.G technique create that happiness?
Yeah, thank you very much. People keep, there is a big research now, happy mind, happiness different than pleasure. As you mentioned, Ms. Tanvi, in the beginning, now we have the obesity is like because people, they are suffer from stress. Actually, they eat because it's a pleasure for them. It's relieving the stress. But what is the meaning, the happiness is meant by the balance again, negative and positive. And it should be negative and positive, which we really accept. We enjoy it. We enjoy at least, the negative. Maybe people will say how we can enjoy negative. Negative is meant to be. Negative something is important in the science. We know that. Because all the creation based on this balance. The atom itself has negative and positive. The protons positive and electrons negative. And it's very important. Without the charges, the negative positive, our body won't move. And we know that because, even the connection, the interaction between, for example, a specific hormone receptor based on these charges, very important here in the, the healthy body. So actually, happiness meant by negative and positive, and that negative and positive is negative is acceptable, number one, by the person and is personal, and the positive is like achieving something that will bring like your the fulfillment. It's like spiritual fulfillment. You feel that you are really happy, you deserve life, you feel differently, even if you are good in other things, in other values. That highest value, or even other fields, even if it's not value, you would do it, but you won't feel the fulfillment as if you do, achieve in your highest value. So that is what's the meaning of happiness here. And here again, we know that there is two pathways in the brain, just the scientific understanding, which is meant by secretion of dopamine. And people keep talking about dopamine. They eat chocolate to get dopamine. Everybody is seeking for dopamine. But there is, it's like addictive to the dopamine, which brings the pleasure. Because that pathway, if you go to eat chocolate, for example, we women, we enjoy eating chocolate. We get used to this when we feel the stress. And we seek for chocolate. So there will be secretion of dopamine, which is a neurotransmitter. Well, that dopamine is like related to wanting the chocolate. It will pass then through a pleasure areas in the brain. So it's like temporary. You will relieve that stress temporary. However, if you feel the stress and go to act, work on your highest value, say writing, or for example, go to the lab or teaching, that will be again secretion of dopamine, but it's going to be different pathway, which will pass through the intellectual areas in the frontal lobe. And that is the balance, because you will feel different than even if you eat chocolate. And even if you go and travel to somewhere which is amazing. So it's completely different, feeling when you are happy, and that happiness only achieved by practicing your highest value. So again, the secret of happiness, the life itself is meant by negative and positive, and that is the balance, the secret of balance of, people or an individual.
So basically, in simpler terms, happiness is simply a state of mind, and it can, it truly comes from controlling your own actions and your thoughts. So if you control your actions and you control your thoughts, you concentrate on your highest value, you focus on your highest value, you achieve that sense of balance, and you can achieve that sense of happiness. So let's talk about the major steps on healing the body and maintaining good health, doctor.
First of all, what I'm sure everybody, the audience really know the program is there. Maybe if what we are talking about, they would agree. But again, they need to allow the minds. All what we are mentioning here, this program, actually it's a program inside each one of us. So we need to activate that program. That's all. So the Creator, God, actually created that inside us, that program. So in order to set ourselves free from the pain and suffer, it's time now to heal ourselves, to heal Earth. So that is one of important, things about the steps which I'm going to mention now. So because that is, again, the responsibility toward ourselves, number one, and toward others. And that is the secret of a human cooperation, because still we need to achieve the humanity on earth. It won't achieved until everybody or every individual will activate his highest value in order to achieve happiness to himself and giving to others. So the major steps, number one, and that is for healing and also the healthy lifestyle, both. Number one, to discover the highest value, and this is very nice talk at the beginning, of the new year. So discover highest value, and you need to put a goal which you want to achieve, you would love to achieve also. It's not only want, it's you love to achieve in 10 years from now. You need to write it down with a roadmap. You need to balance your mind. And this is a technique and always management of the mind, managing the mind is very amazing, talk given by Dr. Mohammed Almoathen, and also how this mind, changing the mind, can affect the human behavior. This is also amazing talk always given by Mr. Ahmed, to be either in survival state and you won't know, or the living state. So the mind is very important here. We need to balance it. We need to balance the past. We need to forgive ourselves, to forgive others. We need to understand how to, or get used on, dealing with our minds, because we need to tell the mind what we want to do and what we love to do, not the mind's going, not to leave the mind to actually play the program or play the record. We need to be conscious about that. So again, human responsibility, human responsibility is very important in activating this highest value and for managing the mind.
Thank you. I think we are quite at the end of our conversation, Dr. Nada. It's always a pleasure to talk to you. However, if there are any points that we missed or you'd like to add more, please feel free right now if you would like to add more things.
I'm very happy and thank you very much. I appreciate this talk, and actually I'm looking forward actually for the last talk at the end of this year, and I'm excited to deliver information about aging, because we need also to highlight the aging.
Of course. See, this is a very exciting conversation. I feel that our next conversation will be even better. Again, it was an amazing conversation, Doctor, and it's 1 hour. This short hour is never enough for our conversations. But we have a constraint on our times. We will definitely have more conversations in the future. And again, thank you very much. And we've missed you in the last 2 months. And thank you very much for coming back. And we will definitely have another conversation very, very soon. Thank you very much, Doctor.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Thank you.